Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast. And today we have a special guest, Pete. So he's also one of our trainee in sports and exercise psychology, and we're so privileged to have him here. And he's going to share a little bit of his experience and his journey, and hopefully give us some feedback and advice on how to keep things going.
Pete, do you want to introduce yourself about just a brief
Mhm.
background about your experience and how you got to this point?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I guess background wise, I grew up just playing sport, mostly rugby, really committing to that and getting to a decent level, a level I'm very
Mhm.
proud of, but maybe being a little bit held back by some of the psychology elements of performance, that performing under pressure. But anyway, rugby really took me places. I got to see the world a bit. I got to go to a school. I got a scholarship to a school which I never ever would have had the opportunity to go to had it not been for sport. That helped me get my school grades up to a level where I managed to get into a university, which again never would have been an opportunity without rugby. And I wasn't particularly academic until I all of a sudden I started. So my bachelor's degree was in sports science, sport and exercise science, and all these topics around like biology, physics, chemistry, well, not chemistry, but you know what I mean, biomechanics, things like that, which never made sense before. All of a sudden, it started making sense because it was in the context of something which I enjoyed. And then I found sports psychology. I had this lecturer who was very funny. He was just eccentric, let's say. And but I don't know, yeah, it just fascinated me. And then I just rode the wave.
Yeah,
It
it's
is really
interesting how
interesting.
it highlights that you don't have to start off with sports psychology for your undergrad. You can do that different route. So if I did the straightforward route, I would say, of just doing sports psychology, now Casey's can do something different, and now it shows that you're doing something different, but we're all both trainees up to this point.
Yeah. Without getting into details, I think if you look at my, you probably wouldn't have thought I'd even go to uni. Or let alone get a bachelor's and then a master's in science or one of the sciences. I tell this all the time to when I have family or friends' family who are struggling with their early academic career. If don't just ride the wave and just see where it takes you because yeah, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, Pete, earlier you said that something like someone inspired you, or you met a really good teacher and it inspired you to do sports psych. But before that, have you have any encounter with sports psych as an athlete before?
No, actually, but I needed it. So
Mhm.
I could have done with it. I think I've always been fascinated with the mental aspect of performance. One thing which comes to mind actually is so we were a big rugby family, and I think me and my old man were watching a documentary for about the maybe it was the 2003 World Cup. So when we won, get it anyway. But yeah, so and I think in the it was they were being coached by Clive Wood. Yeah, I can't remember. And they had somebody come in and they were doing like reaction time, like sight or eye testing or something. And I think looking back, if I was to watch it again, I would probably hear them say that that was a sports psych, but I can't be certain. But anyway, sorry, that's a very long-winded answer of saying no, I haven't myself.
And you think it can help push you become an even better athlete. But yeah, but it's good now you've become one of the sports psych.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely something, yeah, could have
Mhm.
benefited.
Now moving on to some of like what you're currently doing, bring it
Mhm.
up to speed a bit. How are you finding the cases process so far? And talk us through some of the experiences you've got.
So the Casey's process, I love it. I really love it. So it can be quite, it can go from months or weeks of very quiet, almost nothing. This is in the early stages to what's happened for me, where it's like all of a sudden bomb, and every minute of I have spare is taken up. But this is a the way I see it is this is not a profession which you just fall into accidentally. It's a series of very conscious decisions which lead you to get to where we are. And as a result, and there's a lot of stuff going on. It's very much, oh God, brilliant name, which summarizes this so much better than what me rambling on would be. It actually came from one of the people in my supervision group. Sometimes when you feel buried, you've got to realize that you've actually been planted. I just think that sums it up perfectly.
That
And
is a good quote.
oh, it's brilliant. I don't know where I got it from, but it's just I was literally doing a reflection on it the other day. Shout out to Matt, but he yeah, and that captures it perfectly because because you have so many conscious, specific decisions to get you to where you've planted yourself here. You're not just being buried. This is part of the process, and this is what's going to help you grow. Not to lean on the phrase too much, but
Yeah, so you're basically saying even though we're overwhelmed at the minute and we feel like we're getting buried, actually there's a deeper purpose, deeper meaning to it.
yeah,
Yeah, and based on what I know is that you finished your master a year ago, 1 or 2 years.
I get my dates mixed up too.
And I just want to reflect back on your master, moving on to cases. So, like the transition of it and the whole experience of it, how much of a leap and how do you feel like it being trainee sports site right now compared to back then when there's someone to guide you through everything?
it is different. I have a fantastic supervisor who he balances, and this is what I feel I need, and which is why I went as a supervisor, but he balances letting you figure it out and supporting you when you need it really well. And what I mean by that is if there's something which I need to figure out myself, but I maybe ask for support, if I really need it, obviously it'll help. But he's really good at recognizing with me when I'm asking for support and when I'm maybe just leaning on him. So he'll throw it back at me a lot, which is exactly what I need, and he knows that. He'll just go, "Well, what do you think?" And then and then it's led me to start thinking more that way inclined of like, okay, well, just take a step back. What do I think? And then if I do ask for support, I'll go with that first instead of just being, oh, what do you know? Sorry, slightly tangent, but so for, step one would be I do have a really good supervisor who supports me in a way which is specific for how I operate and how I function, which is great. And that helps. In regards to the difference between the masters and then going into that supervised practice, it's the academic side of sports psychology is foundational, don't get me wrong, and it's really important. When you put it into practice, there's so many other elements that it almost feels totally different.
It's like starting from the beginning again and
It
trying to
is
learn it
really.
all again.
Yes, exactly. And then you have to learn how to almost teach people it without telling them all of the theory because they won't want to. So
Exactly. And
yeah,
most of the athletes don't care about the research backing it up. They just want to know if it works and
Yeah.
how quickly can it work.
but then weirdly, you might have one who really wants to know the background of it to rationalize it in their head. So there's so much interpersonal skill which maybe isn't taught in the master's stage
Mm.
of this process. That interpersonal, that communication, the counseling skills, for example, it's all that's all extra stuff which maybe isn't frequently taught in that academic period.
Yeah, I understand what you mean because when me and Can we did our masters together at Greenwich and we did the 1 year course, so it was quite intense. And we only had a handful of times where we did role plays in the class. And
Yeah.
we had one experience when our lecturer took us out for the day, and it was at this football camp thing. And that was the first time we actually got to see how sports psychology can be applied. And yeah, you might know the theory like the back of your hand, but actually applying it is another thing.
Yeah, I would say in university or in master help us to become a good academic student. Profession help us to become a good professional. And
Yeah.
right. So moving on from that, can you share some of your applied experience that you are doing currently?
I'm very grateful to
Uh,
yes for a very long time. And this is not uncommon from my understanding. I struggled to find some
oh yeah.
because there's so much CPD to do, and then also you've got to find the opportunities. But yes, I can. So my applied experience at the moment is in rugby, which was purely by chance actually. And I do a lot of I'm trying to do a lot of work in the performance environment side of stuff, starting with that kind of performance culture, the cultural element, and then with a few bits of one-to-one work here and there. But yeah.
All right. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So just for our listener, in sports psych, especially during your supervision period, you have to go out and find your own experience rather than it will fit to you. So it is maybe slightly different to other industry. But yeah, but can we go a little bit deeper? Because I know that you use ACT. So what led you to use it and what is your experience of using it?
Yeah, I giggle about my approach because ACT just makes sense to me, and I'll go more into that in a minute. But I think my actual approach to practice, I almost certainly follow more of an integrative approach, and I feel like in my worldview, I feel like that's what pretty much most knees probably no, I can't say that with confidence. I was going to say most trainees should at least like dip their foot or like start in an integrative approach, and my rationale for that was we're trainees, but like try it all,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, when it's appropriate and can be backed up. I'm going to backtrack on that and say, okay, maybe not. I don't think I'm the right person to say every trainee should, because I'm not a supervisor. I'm a trainee myself. But so yeah, I take an integrative approach, but I lead with ACT, and the reason with that is because CBT as a framework
Mhm.
generally just makes sense to me. It's easy enough to follow, and you can almost see it in action, and then ACT being the next wave of CBT approaches makes even more sense to me because the recognition of automatic thoughts, with the nature of sport
It
while
just
you're
happened so
performing.
quickly. Yeah.
Say again, so yes, that's exactly what I
Yeah.
was trying to word. Yes, things happen so quickly. Where's your energy and your mental energy best applied? Is it in trying to change a thought, recognizing a thought, trying to change it, or is it changing the relationship with that? And then obviously the fact that the work happens all outside of the performance itself, so that can become more of a habitual process. I don't know, it just clicks with me and the way I conceptualize performance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so
most certainly. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with back at uni when we're taught about the approaches, ACT is quite a new one. So using the acceptance commitment therapy, most like traditionally people
Mhm.
just use changing their rational thoughts, but actually now a lot of practitioners are realizing, why should you force that change when it's in the name. You have to learn to accept them and actually let them pass over you, because you can't stop them from happening, as you said. So it is getting a much more popular approach. And there's every practitioner will have their view on their different approaches and say, yeah, I prefer the humanistic approach, having more
Mhm.
counselling based. But as practitioners, we're encouraged to sort of explore and look
Mm.
into all of the approaches. And if you can apply all of them, because not one approach will work for all athletes. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the key is just to be open-minded about all the approaches and most importantly, what the athlete needs. And that is the key here, I would say.
Yeah, I forgive me because I had a metaphor pop in my head the other day about this because I was on a counselling CPD thing, and it reaffirmed to me that integrated approach. And but sorry, my thoughts are, I'm having like three at once. I need to, so I'm gonna so the point I was making was a really cringy metaphor which popped in my head, is I think my approach to developing as a practitioner, I think of it, and I try to take this approach in practice as well when I'm working with people, is think about it like a river, a water around a rock. So you let the process flow, but then I'm butchering my own metaphor. I can't remember. Basically, it just took me back to GCSE geography, where the oxbow lake is created. And so in that process, in the practitioner client process, and also in my own developmental process, I like the idea of just letting things flow, letting them go where they're going to go, guiding it. So maybe being the banks of the river, guiding it. But at the end of the day, if a river really wants to go in one point, eventually it's going to erode away. You know, it will find the path of least resistance without being forced. That it's just natural, and that natural flow of things is what I quite like the concept of that in how I want to approach practice.
Yeah, and if we go back to it, we need to always reflect on what our values are and how they relate to the approaches. I mean, an integrated approach is very much accepted nowadays. And it's encouraged for us we have to document within cases what our approach is at the initial few months and then how it develops. And a lot of people I've spoken to, their approach from the beginning, if they were one approach, they've gone to the completely different opposite side of it now, which is fine, because you're not the same practitioner from
It's
the beginning
great.
of the process to the end.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think because, as I say, it goes back to your question earlier around the difference between masters and applied. You probably come out of your masters thinking, "Yeah, I'm 100% going to do this." In fact, I think one of the key considerations when people transition through that process is the fact that most ex-students or pre-trainees will probably follow whatever approach was most frequently talked about in lectures. And so you know that if somebody has a change of approach, they've made a conscious decision, they've reflected on it, and that's going to be more authentic to them. So that's
Yeah,
I
that's a
just
good
remember.
point. Yeah. No, I'm just
Sorry,
saying, just want to say that for students, just they don't have like applied experience and they don't actually know how it is like to use it in real life. So being a trainee can actually let us to test it out. And that is when the transition of different approaches happen.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I just remember one of our lecturers at masters was very much you can only practice one approach. You have to train for years and master that approach because how can you be competent in loads of approaches? So you've got two sides of the argument there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I remember that.
And I sort of understand, but I also think, at least in this process, just I think just get a really clear understanding of all of the approaches, and that's part of an integrative approach. Integrated approaches is it's not just pick and choose. It's you have to have quite a clear understanding of all of them. It's not just like, oh, I'll take a bit of this, take a bit of that. It's like, no, what justifies this for this specific, situation? So you end up learning more about more approaches. But then I guess once you've maybe to play devil's advocate for that lecturer you mentioned, maybe doubling down and becoming really, really good at one approach, I'm sure will have benefits.
And as you said, you lead with ACT, but you also incorporate the other approaches.
Yes, yeah.
So let's
Can we
move
move
on
on?
to, yeah, another topic is a little bit more uncomfortable, but just to share some of your challenges that you faced in the past, or maybe if you want, you can share one or two of some of the funny story that you have encountered so far. Yeah.
I think
Uh,
you touched on how lonely the process can be sometimes.
yeah. Yes, I mean, do you mind if I mention Pick Connect? Is that
Go for it.
so
You should.
so lovely, thank you. So it can be
Mm.
quite uncertain at times. It's again, you make a series of very conscious, deliberate decisions to end up where we are, and then you get here, and it can feel like, maybe I'm not developing quick enough, maybe I'm not getting as much applied work as I should be, blah blah blah, whatever it might be. And you have your supervisor who's there to support you through that, which is why it's so important you get a good supervisor for you, for how you operate. But then, unlike other career paths, you don't really have colleagues unless you actively seek them out. Like you might have your
Mm.
supervisor group, other trainees, but oftentimes they're very, very busy or whatever it might be. And this is what that experience of mine around this process is what led me to found SEPiT Connect, which is like a community where the whole point of it is to try and take our own development into our own hands using the power of that peer development stuff. And by that I mean organizing our own role plays instead of waiting for them to come up in a workshop or
Mm.
whatever it might be once a month or whatever. Being really deliberate in our own development and in those role plays and trying to source our own experiences, our own interviews. We had a friend of mine who recently published his own research paper come on and have, give us a chat about his experiences about that he was very much in the doping area of academic sports psychology, and by taking it into our own hands, utilizing that autonomy element, you also connect with other sports psychs who come in and can support each other. And then there's other opportunities which I'm working on at the moment, trying to give to the members, which it's taken a while, but it's getting there. Anyway, so that's my experience. And then a side note of that is that so many people are like, yeah, 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 I'll get involved because yeah, yeah, they just want to get involved in anything. We have about probably about 30 maybe members total.
Mm.
We have two memberships. We have the ones where we do the workshop, the stuff which basically takes my time as part of the paid membership basically, and then there's the free membership where it's just come on just like a group chat basically, and then we'll share. I don't know if somebody sees a job advert or CPD or whatever. We have about 30 members, and very few people actually commit to sharing anything or putting in a message.
I think it's hard for sometimes people find it a bit daunting putting a message in a chat with that many people when you don't know them well, or
Yeah.
you're too ashamed to put something in because other people might think it's like a stupid comment.
Yeah, and I think that sort of also summarizes the experience of being a trainer. Like you don't I struggle with that juxtaposition between being a trainer, being quite highly qualified in the fact that we all have bachelors, we all have masters, we're all on applied practice, we all have extra qualifications which we did to get here. I had to do a year of open university as well to bridge the gap in some areas, like very, very highly qualified and gaining experience. So that's one side of it. But then there's also the side where it's like, I have questions which I think I probably shouldn't be asking. And it's like, well, who do I ask them? Because I don't want to feel silly. And that's what SEPiT Connect is kind of there for. It's like, well, no, you don't need to. We're all trainees here. So it's like there's nobody who's going to be judging or anything. It's like, well, just ask.
Also, it's good to mention that on LinkedIn, I think all the sports psychologists, most of my connections are fellow trainees. And sometimes it's like when you go on LinkedIn, people will post about all their achievements and new opportunities, but no one really goes into the struggles that they're having.
Yeah, and that's social media all over. It's you. Well, you only post the highlights. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That is like quite uncomfortable for us as a trainee. We are all very highly qualified, has lots of experience and a lot of educational background. But at the same time, we also have to be vulnerable sometimes to share our struggle with others, where we feel that if we share it, we'll be seen as less professional. But
Yeah.
that is where we grow and become a better professional. And
And that's
that
what we
kind of
teach athletes.
internal conflict, yeah.
We literally tell athletes it's okay well, it's not weakness to show your vulnerabilities, it's a
Yeah.
strength. But yeah, it's hard. A lot of practitioners won't necessarily open up for that as much, not online anyway, or hopefully SEPiT Connect will be that safer space, and it's worth mentioning that it's in the early stages anyway. So hopefully a lot more people will join. I've gained probably most valuable thing was the role play scenarios because it's not going to replicate real life situations, but you can still have that slight exposure and actually put some practice in there.
Yeah, bit of practice and then that feedback, peer feedback. I can't stress enough that there's no you're getting feedback from other trainees. Like I'm not cannot replace supervision and is not there to replace supervision. It's there to fill the gaps which would have been filled by maybe just having a colleague normally. But that's not the process.
And it's good because everyone's got so many different experiences that they can So if you're unsure in one situation, I'm sure another trainee or another practitioner would have been exposed to that. And then they can share their experiences and then you can learn from that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe sports psychology is right now is still a small industry, but we're definitely a growing industry and gaining more and more interest of others.
And just before we move on, I would like to say that when we said we're really highly qualified, we are. But a lot of job applications, they want at least 1 or 2 years of experience in the field in an elite setting. So it's always a catch-22, I think, because you need the qualification, but then you can't get the experience, or for a job, you might have the experience, but not the right level.
And that's when we could, depending on timing and obviously and what and whatever you guys want to talk about, but it's you know in the trainee process there is a lot of well the free doing certain experience work for free and I think it can be frustrating at times, but I kind of get it to an extent because it's like we just spoke about earlier how different applied practice is to the master's process. We are training to be psychologists first who specialize in sport and
Yeah,
and
agree.
that profession is a delicate one. We're a helping profession and it's one which can have real impact one way or another on performance. And so I kind of get it. It's just really frustrating.
It's a difficult but rewarding process.
Yeah, I love it. It's so tough though because you've got to make up the hours elsewhere and have a job. But yeah, I love it.
I can totally see where you're going with it, Pete, here. We can definitely have another episode if you are happy for it to
Yeah,
talk
there's
about
lots
all
more
of
to talk
this.
about.
Yeah.
No. I really want to talk about it, honestly. It's the struggle of doing voluntary work and gaining more and more experience. But at the same time, we already a kind of almost qualified profession. But yeah, well, I think we kind of get to the very end bit. Well, let's just end with, can you share some of the advice maybe to other trainee or people thinking about becoming a sports psych or maybe a younger version of yourself? Just some advice as a closing statement.
Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
need what my advice would be.
You can have a few points as well. It
Yeah.
doesn't just have to be one main point.
Yeah, knowing me, I'll probably give about eight, and like only three of them will make sense. I think the advice I would give to people who have made the decision to become a sports cycle, start the trainee process, would be prepared, and this is advice which I don't adhere to myself, but I'm working on it really hard. When you're not, don't. What I mean by that is, I have such a supportive girlfriend who deals with me getting so engrossed in the work I'm doing. Like there was a time where I just wouldn't switch off. I would I would work until I would fall asleep, and then I'd wake up, I'd go to my day job, come home, and then I'd sit at my computer and I'd do work until and it doesn't need to be like that. But then it got to the point where I wasn't really giving her any of my time, which isn't fair, But it can feel like that's what you need to do sometimes, but it's not. Just when you work, commit to work. When you're not at work, commit to everything else, family, girlfriend, whatever it might be. And yeah, that's probably advice I would want to give myself previously and advice I need to be reminded of right now.
That is a really good advice, and it's also something that I'm struggling as well.
Yeah, could you find like in the evenings you just like you have the telly
Yeah.
on but yeah, I'll just tinker on my laptop or whatever and yeah, sorry. I get excited when I think of it. This is advice and I'm conscious of time and I don't want to overdo it, but very experienced and inspirational sports psych for me, who's connected with our supervisor group. She has this saying which she brings to me specifically as well, but also as the group, is your body keeps the score, and that means all of the stress which builds up, your body keeps the score, and eventually it comes back somehow, and for me there was so much stress outside of this with work at the start of the year, I had some quite bad health issues as a result, which had me out of action for probably about a month, and things which shouldn't be happening at my age, and that's another thing I would add on to that is your body
Mm.
keeps the score. So manage your stress well.
So self-care is key.
Yeah, it's self-care to everything.
Mm.
It's everything. You've got to be able, if you want to do a good job in this, you've got to be able to function, and to function, you've got to look after yourself. So yeah,
Right. Thank you so much, Pete. Really appreciate it.
no worries. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great episode. Hopefully we come on at another time. And then
Yeah,
as
we
we've only
can.
touched on the surface on some of the topics
Oh
within
yeah,
I'm
basically
sorry if I
how we are.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I ramble on. It's just I love talking about this stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
more than welcome. That is why we need another episode of
Yeah, I'm
you.
more than happy. Yeah.
Right. So see you guys in the next episode. Right.